Hello my dear friends, and today in LatinDutch we will be making grilled arepas. And we will be splitting this video in 3 sections: the salad, the arepas and the chicken. This is a very special recipe from the city where I'm from, Maracaibo. So let's go ahead and start with the ingredients for the salad, and later I'll tell you a little bit more about the origin of this recipe. And we have 3 tomatoes, 1 yellow onion and a bunch of coriander, about 1 ounce give or take. I also have here a little bit of white vinegar that we'll be using to tone down the raw onion flavor. But as usual, you can find the ingredients and the written recipe in the video description below. So we start with the tomatoes, which as usual I have already washed well, and now I'm pulling out their vines. And as you can see here, first I'm cutting them in halves so I can remove the stem. If you want to also remove the seeds, that's up to you, but I'm leaving them in. And you could easily use any type of large tomato that you have available, but the original one should be the pear tomatoes. Not precisely the ones that you see here, but these are the ones that I had in my fridge, so that is that. After that, then I will proceed to dice them. And remember that we will be using this salad towards the end of the recipe to bathe the grilled chicken and highlight and brighten all of its flavors. And once I have diced all the tomatoes, I will place them in a bowl where we will be mixing them with all the other ingredients for this salad. So I can move my attention to the onion. And I'm using a yellow onion today, but feel free to use a white one or a red one if that's what you have available, or simply if that's what you prefer. And as usual, I will cut them first in half and then take out the outer layers that are a little bit dried up for my salad. And for the cut, I will finely chop it, leveraging the root of the onion so it holds it together while I do the chopping. And this style is known as brunoise. Once I'm done with it, I will move it to the salad bowl along with the tomatoes. At this point, I can add the vinegar I had reserved earlier, and it will help me tone down the intensity of the onion. Here I have 3 tablespoons, but if I need to adjust later by adding a little bit more, I can do that. And from there I move on to chop the coriander, which I have already washed very well. And now I'm removing just a tiny bit closer to the root, because coriander stems are not fibrous like parsley, let's say, so we can use them for this type of preparation. And it doesn't really matter if you do a super fine chop here or a rough one, it's completely up to you, just a matter of styles. And once you finish that, as you guessed, to the bowl. Once we have finished with all vegetables, now we can get started with the dressing, for which I will need a tablespoon of the all plain yellow mustard, and I would suggest not to use Dijon mustard or any other fancy one, because that will change the flavor profile way too much. After that, a cup of mayo, and once again, you can just use your favorite, because I know a lot of debate has been said and done about the different mayo styles. Whether you like more of an acidic one or a sweet one, it doesn't matter as much in this case. And just remember that all the ingredients and quantities are shown at the video description, also the link to the Spanish version of this video. And I finalize with 3 tablespoons of neutral flavored oil. And although olive oil is the one I would typically recommend because it's healthier and has all the benefits, for this preparation I would suggest to go with a neutral flavored one such as avocado oil or corn oil, so it doesn't alter our flavors. Then a pinch of salt and pepper if you like, mix with all the ingredients. Now you can give it a taste, and if needed, this is a point where you can adjust for more vinegar. Now let's move to the arepas, and I will share a few tips to become a pro. We only need 3 ingredients: pan flour, salt and water. And while there are other brands that you can use, this is the one that I grew up with, so this is the one that I will use. Alright, in a wide and large bowl to mix the arepas, I have added 2.5 cups of flour, which will be enough for about 5 to 6 mid-sized arepas, and I added a teaspoon of salt. Then I proceed to add 2 cups of water while immediately I mix with my hands. And this is a very important step so you don't get any bumps in your dough. You may notice at the beginning that the dough looks quite runny and watery, and this is okay. This is expected. This flour is made of pre-cooked cornmeal, and it is a thirsty one. And that's why we have to let it hydrate for about 3 to 5 minutes. So let's go ahead and do that. And you will see when you come back that it is not runny anymore, but it has absorbed all the water. Yet if you see that it has become crumbly, then you will need to adjust and add a little bit more water. And as you can see here, it doesn't stick to my bowl or to my hands anymore, which is what lets me know that this is ready to go. Also, when I do this little test, I can check how flexible my dough is, and I can also shape it up. And even if I squeeze it, it won't crack on the sides, so you can see here. If yours is cracking or crumbling, just add a little bit more water and mix again until you reach this consistency. Now let's move to our working space and grab a portion more or less what fits in your palms. And whether you want to make them party size or extra large is not a big deal. Generally, I make them of the size that is comfortable for my hands to handle. And as you can see, I start by shaping it as a bowl. Try not to leave any cracks or irregularities throughout the surface. Then I start flattening it between my palms and keep on doing that until I form a disc of about half an inch or an inch thick. Another tip is to damp your hands while handling this dough. It will make your life much easier. And I finish it up by smoothing the borders to cover any cracks it might have still formed, and those final touches to make it look as round as possible. Unless you're intentionally trying to make a square arepas, and that's up to you. And look how pretty this one ended up. Bring it to a hot pan, and today I'm using the pancake pan for the sake of this video, but typically I would use a budare, which is a clay or iron-made pan traditionally used to sear and cook the arepas in open fire. So let them sear for about 4 to 5 minutes on the first side without moving it using high heat. And after that you will see that I only need to move them a little bit and they're not sticking to the pan. So go ahead and grab a spatula, and with that, flip them one at a time. And then you can see how nicely golden they have become on the first side. And don't worry to fully cook them. We're just searing them at this stage. Later they will cook on the grill together with the chicken and with whatever other meats you're using. And this crunchy layer we have made will ensure that on the outside they will be crispy and then soft on the inside. Leave it for 3 more minutes on the other side and then take it to a tray so we can go to the grill. By the way, after this step you can reserve them for maybe a few minutes if you're ready with everything else, or for a couple of hours. Now let's move on and prepare our chicken. For that we have 6 boneless chicken thighs. This part of the chicken is much juicier than, say, the chicken breast, but you can use either one or even mix both of them. And whether you go boneless or bone-in or skinless or skin-on, whatever you want to do is just matter of preference. So I'll leave that to you. Now for the marinade, I'm using a tablespoon of yellow mustard to begin with. Then 1/3 cup of seasoning powder, and I'm using my adobo of course as usual, but if you don't have that you can just mix equal amounts of salt, pepper, oregano, cumin, powdered onion and powdered garlic. And after sprinkling it all over the chicken, it is time to get your hands dirty and massage that chicken to ensure all the flavor enters into every crack and cranny. Side note, an optional ingredient that I didn't have at home is Worcestershire sauce, that it gives a special touch. And the last step is to squeeze a couple of garlic cloves and massage again to integrate with the rest of the marinade. Once done, cover and refrigerate to marinate for a minimum of 2 hours, maximum 24 hours. If you're making these arepas with beef instead of chicken, you can use exactly the same marinades and it will work wonderfully. Flank steak will be perfect. Now let's go to the grill, which is already quite hot at about 350 Fahrenheit degrees. And if you use coal, that's even better. I'm just using gas for convenience. And as you can see, I managed to place all my chicken in the grill, always with the fatty side down, lean side up. And next to it, yet not contacting with the raw chicken, I place my arepas. And well, I couldn't avoid the temptation, so I threw in a few sausages and, well, I will mix them up later with the chicken. And you know, these arepas remind me where I grew up. And about 15 years ago there was a boom of arepa places, and it seems that they were all competing for the best grilled arepa. And they were all blown up with meat inside, to such a point that it was just normal to order a stuffed arepa and a plain one so you could have it with excess meat. Now listen to this. My arepas puffed up, which means they are perfect. I'm not sure if you noticed earlier, but I had the arepas on the grill placed just underneath the sausages, so all the juices were dripping on top of the arepa, making it a little bit more tasty and crunchy. And now with my chicken fully cooked, I can move it to a cutting table, and using a sharp knife I start cutting it all in long strips. I also bring the sausage and do the same, and mix it all together. And you know, being far from home, you start to realize all of those flavors that you miss. And at least to me, this is one of the main reasons why I started to replicate so many of these recipes. And I'm very glad now to be able to bring them to everyone. And honestly, this is one of those recipes that you know it will be successful. So I haven't met yet the first person that I invite home that doesn't like this one. Speaking of which, probably it's a good moment to like the video. Now let's finally stuff these arepas. So you start by opening them quite carefully because they are piping hot. So use a towel or a napkin to hold it. And I start by adding some of this green sauce, which is optional, but it will definitely give it a special touch. Also, some people would prefer to use a little bit of butter so it can melt just after that with the fresh cheese. Then add an extra generous portion of the mix of meats so it resembles the real deal. Then a little bit more of that green sauce, and finally we will add that salad, including all of these juices so it coats all of the meat. It helps not only seasoning, but it breaks a little bit the heaviness of that grilled meat. So it is a perfect complement. And then we finalize with a little bit more of the white fresh cheese, and there you go. This is, my friends, how the little grilled chicken arepa looks like. I tell you, really, these are above and beyond. Give it a try. But thanks again for following our channel, LatinDutch.